Hi, welcome to the live, everybody. Glad to be here with you guys. I'm checking this time to make sure both Facebook and YouTube are attached because last week that did not happen and that was irritating because it was a really good live, if I do say so myself. Not so much because of what I said, but the questions were great. People were engaged. So I want to make sure people are going to join us. So we talked about some things last week. We talked about how important protein is. We talked about a lot about protein and protein. So anyway, what I'd love to know is one, how to remember things better. Because wow, I was like, there's a lot we talked about. Anyway, you'll have to go back and watch. The whole thing is on YouTube. So if you were on Facebook and you couldn't watch the whole thing, then you can get that on YouTube. It is now Tuesday as we're recording this little live, and I am here. I am sorry that I am a little late. So thank you for joining me now. And let's get into it. What kinds of things would you like to talk about? I skipped my gym session last Friday. I just decided to take a personal day. I was going through a lot of stuff. Like I had my first ever, I had my first ever mammogram, and then I had this other thing, and there were just some medical things that stressed me out. And I was like, you know what? It's okay. Now, there are decisions to be made, right? Like going to the gym is actually a great stress reliever. But in conjunction with the fact that I was really stressed out, I had done something to my shoulder in my workout the day before or the previous workout that still kind of hurt. And so I decided instead of going to the gym on Friday, I would go for a very long walk just to chill out. So I said, okay, I'm going to use the exact same amount of time I would normally use in the gym to move my body, but to do it in a way that right now just feels more nourishing. Although the gym has started to feel definitely like a more nourishing place, but to feel like I was going to kind of just stroll and be happy. I am fine. There's no medical emergency at all. Just there are just some days you are not feeling it, right? Like it just piles up. Does anyone else just be like, you know what? I just need a day. I need a day where I get to decide what happens here because I was having a week and then you had a day and now things are much better this week. So, Julie, hi, Kim. You are looking great. Well, thank you so much. Um, I appreciate that. I chose this high neck t-shirt today because for some reason my chest is broken out. I don't know. Maybe it's the gym thing. Anyway, you didn't need to know that, but I overshare. Hey, Nancy, thank you. Yes, I did get the squash that I needed to get for because I want to take care, and I appreciate how that's important to you. Thank you for the kudos. I just don't really like the fact that I'm aging at all in any way, shape, or form, and any reminder of it is irritating. Anyway, um, Terry says it's funny when I'm going to the gym. I can't imagine not going to the gym. When I'm off the gym mode, I'm 100% off. Yeah, I was listening to a podcast today. Um, Ethan Suplee, and he was saying that like it's very weird for him to not go to the gym anymore because it's just kind of his normal. But yeah, we set a new normal, right? Like before you had kids, probably. I don't know if you had kids, but if you have kids, it seemed totally normal not having it. Then it would seem weird to not have kids. It's just like your whole life changes and it's all a new normal. Um, Mary, good job on getting the mammogram and the colonoscopy. I've not yet reached the colonoscopy stage. That's another joy, but we'll get there. Okay. Julie, I didn't miss your question. I just jumped around. I appreciate you saying I look great. I only shared that part and I didn't answer your question. What protein powders are you currently using? Well, it just depends. So, protein powders are a complex topic, strangely. Also, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I'm at the gym for a long time, so I listen to a lot of podcasts today. And they were talking about protein. So, anyway, so protein powders. I used to be against them. Used to give people bad information. I used to say like, you shouldn't use these. If you're insulin resistant, you shouldn't use protein powders. I used to be pretty much camp no. And then, I learned more. I looked into it. And so here's the deal. So whey protein is very insulinogenic. So I'll back up a step. So protein powders are simply that they isolate the proteins in any specific food. So there are protein powders made from dairy, protein powders made from egg, protein powders made from muscle meat, like beef protein isolate is a thing. You can take the proteins out of some seeds like hemp seeds. You can get protein from soy. You can get protein from brown rice. So they can isolate the protein out and then they make a powder out of it. So protein powders can be made from a variety of things. The two dairy proteins are casein and whey. And whey protein is what most people think of when they think of protein powders. At least that might be shifting a little bit. The vegans are honing in with their vegan protein powders. This is very deep sofa stuff. She's putting a pillow behind me. Um, but whey is sort of what a lot of us are used to hearing about. So whey protein. So if you took the proteins out of milk in the ratio they're in milk or any dairy, because every dairy product starts as milk, is it's 80% casein and 20% whey. So, and whey is spelled WHEY, not WAY. So whey protein is actually the minority protein in milk, but because in cheese making they strain off more whey than casein, the casein remains in the cheese more. Um, there's a lot of byproduct whey, and then that whey is sold to protein powder companies and they make protein powders with it. So whey protein is the least expensive usually protein powder. Now from there they get this whey protein in a form you would call concentrate. So whey protein concentrate, it's sort of like, it's mostly just whey, but it's also still got some lactose in it, still got some milk protein. Well, no, it has lots of milk proteins. Hello, milk solids, some fat, little bits of those things. And so then if they further refine whey protein, it becomes whey protein isolate. They've isolated the protein. That makes sense. So concentrate, then it goes to isolate, and then it can go to, is it micellular? There's like one more rung under isolate that I can't remember, but basically isolate is as good as you probably need. The other one's just overpriced. And so micronized, is that what? Anyway, I should look it up. But basically, long story short, isolate is probably as pure as one would want or care about. Though sometimes the more refined it is, the better it blends. So if that matters to you. Okay, this is Kim's very long story now. So then we've got whey protein. Now, whey protein contains a really great amino acid profile, which means that it's really good for adding for triggering muscle protein synthesis. So for a bodybuilder or someone trying to add muscle mass or someone struggling with sarcopenia, whey is a great protein choice. The reason it's sort of frowned upon in the keto sphere is that the amino acid profile of whey. So do you guys know what I mean by amino acid profile? So every protein is a matrix of amino acids, right? It's a combination of different amino acids. Some amino acids are more insulinogenic, some are more gluconeogenic, some are more ketogenic. Don't know which are which off the top of my head. I will tell you that. The short answer to that is it doesn't actually matter all that much. It is true that if you drink whey protein, your insulin will go up more than if you drank, say, casein protein. However, your insulin is going to go up when you eat. It should go up when you eat. If it's in response to something like whey protein, it's probably not the worst thing ever to have that happen. So I don't want to, it's like too late, Kim. I'm like, I don't want to confuse people too much, but there can be some concerns around whey protein. I occasionally use whey protein for sure, but I tend to use whey protein if I'm going to do a shake. I don't do shakes very much, by the way. They're not very filling. So the only time I really do a shake is around a workout when I'm not going to get a chance to digest food, but I'm hungry. So I digest food pretty slowly, which means if I eat a solid meal less than 90 minutes before I'm working out, I'm going to feel it while I'm working out, and that doesn't feel good. But a shake, especially a whey protein shake, which is digested very rapidly, I don't feel like I get a stomach ache from during my workout. So I might do it then. The other types of protein powders that I use protein powders in baking more than in drinking. Though, occasionally, if I want a milkshake, I'll make a shake. Usually I'll use a Quip protein powder, which is a beef protein isolate. The brand is Equip. I like their chocolate one. That's the one I reach for most often, if I'm looking for just a shake experience. It's non-dairy. I do fine with dairy, but for those that care, it's non-dairy. I mix it with like almond milk or coconut milk or some type of low-calorie milk, and then I'll make if I want a shake occasionally, then that's what I'll go to. But in terms of what I use for baking, I most often use Keto Chow a lot, which is a milk protein isolate. So remember that 80/20 I talked about with whey and casein? A milk protein isolate is both casein and whey. And so or I have some casein protein pure. It doesn't it's not good to drink really, but it thickens things. So if you add water to whey protein, it's super watery. If you add water to casein protein, it's like pudding. So it's great for baking. I make pancakes with casein protein. So long story not short, um, Julie, to answer your question, I use a combination. I currently have like 5 protein powders, so it depends what I'm doing with it, is the answer. So if you wanna tell me you're not asleep yet. You wanna tell me what you want a protein powder for, I can share what the benefits of those are. Alright. Andrea says, "Hey, Kim, can non-fasting blood test makes a difference in your triglycerides?" Yes. Let me say that so somebody could understand what I just said because I was mumbling. Um, can non-fasting blood tests make a big difference in your triglyceride readings? I will enunciate. Yes, very big differences. Don't trust a triglyceride reading if you're not fasted. There you go. Tracy, are you lift wow, the mouth not working today. Are you lifting heavier weights for fewer reps or lighter with higher reps and sets? I've switched to heavier weights with fewer reps and focusing on the eccentric, not the eccentric, but the eccentric muscle contraction, hoping for more improvement. Yes, I do heavier weights, lower reps. I will do sort of, I won't say it's easy, but I'll do one easier set, and then progressively raise the weight to kind of do as a warm up set. So, for example, on the leg press, I started today and because I- I'm a little less energetic feeling today, so I was like, I'm not going to push it too hard. But like, okay, so my first set of 10 on the leg press, I did 200 pounds. Then I did 220. Then I did 260, and then I was like, "Oh, I still can do more," and then I did 280. So I always kind of depends on the machine. I usually progress through at a higher weight as I go. So I'll do an easier, medium, heavy, and I want to go basically to failure by the end. That's what I've been doing. Mostly because 'cause I'm sort of newer, I'm trying to not injure myself, so I'm sort of splitting the difference a little bit in that I'm not going light, certainly. I want to, by the time I hit my 3rd set of 10 or my 2nd set of 15, depending on what I'm doing, to feel like I can't do another one with good form. So that's what I'm looking for at this time. Not an expert at this, but I'm working my way through. Um Tali says, I can't do whey protein. It upsets my stomach. And we all have to pay attention to what our bodies tell us. Um, I do egg or collagen. Absolutely. So be aware that collagen is an incomplete protein. And so don't use collagen protein essentially to feed your muscle. I'll put it that way. It does. Remember how I talked about that there's like I look at it like I'm going to have to I just thought of this analogy. It's like a weaving, right? You're weaving together amino acids to get the complete amino acid profile you need. And so you can think of certain things like complete proteins, like whey protein has a certain type of weave. Like imagine a blanket has been woven for you. Um, and then you layer one blanket on top of another blanket, and eventually you get a really thick layer where you can't see the light through at all. Um, Imagine that the collagen protein is a very wide weave with lots of holes in it. So if you just tried to wear that as a dress, you'd feel pretty naked. But if you keep layering, you'll have a solid cloth, right? But in and of itself, collagen protein is not doesn't cover the bases. And so it's not going to feed the muscle growth the way that whey would, to turn a strange phrase. But egg is pretty good. Egg is pretty good. Nancy said, how is whey protein powder different from just using egg white protein powder? Why is collagen not a complete protein? Okay, so I just started to explain that, but so you can think about it this way. Well, I gave the analogy already, but let me go into a little more detail. So there are um, 20-ish uh, amino acids. However, of those, about 9 are called essential amino acids. When we call something essential in the nutrition world, what we mean is we cannot get it, we cannot make it, right? We need to eat it. So it is essential that we eat it to get it. So we can make some amino acids in our body. It's like just like we can do gluconeogenesis, right? We can make glucose from other substrates, but there are certain amino acids we cannot put together. And so we need to consume those amino acids or else we will suffer. Now, do we need to consume them every day? Are we going to die tomorrow if we didn't get every single amino? No, no. We're more flexible than that. But if we don't eat them on the regular, we will not do well. And so an example would be the first protein sparing modified fast was something called the last chance diet, and it was a liquid diet, and they fed them just collagen protein, and I think a dozen people died. Now it was a combination of lack of appropriate electrolyte supplementation, I believe, but also they were for very long periods of time not given proper protein. They were given collagen protein. It's not a complete protein. Your muscles require protein, and the heart is a muscle. So collagen protein contains some amino acids. So it does add to the the sum total of your amino acid pot for the day. But in and of itself is not a complete protein. So hopefully that explains the difference. So if something is called a complete protein, it contains all 9 of those essential amino acids. Now, if I put some collagen protein with some whey protein, mix them together, and then gave it to you, that item, that shake I made, would have complete protein in it. But what they look at for what they call the quoting quoting, the protein quality score is the concentration of those amino acids. So, in fact, when you add collagen to a shake, you're lowering the protein score because you are diluting the quality of protein. So, that's how protein experts will look at collagen protein. So, for me, what I say is if you want to add collagen protein, if you decided collagen protein is a good idea, I'm totally for it. If you want to do it, add it on top of your protein requirement. So, if you know for your height, size, muscle mass, you need a minimum of 100 grams of protein a day, and you drink this protein drink, you put collagen protein in your coffee and it's 10 grams, then make your goal 110. Add that on top of your goal. Make sure you get your minimum amount of protein in. Um, uh, how is whey protein different than egg? So whey protein, so if you think again, those amino acids, they're all in different quantities in each type of protein. Whey protein is specifically fairly high in what people call branch chain amino acids, especially leucine. Now, leucine is especially important in that leucine has been found to be the main trigger of muscle protein synthesis. So, getting enough leucine content per meal is going to help you trigger that muscle protein synthesis, which you need to help your body replenish the protein it loses over the course of the day. That being said, there is totally enough leucine in egg whites as well. If you want to do egg whites and you don't want to do whey protein, totally fine. the difference for me is I tend to not like the taste of egg white protein as much. It also doesn't thicken the same way, say, casein does. So it just depends on the effect you're looking for. Um, in terms of like quality of protein, egg is right behind whey. They're both considered very good quality proteins. Why don't why don't you try keto chow for a shake? I have tried keto chow shakes. They're delicious. I love them. Um, I don't tend to drink shakes. And if I'm drinking a shake, I tend to want it to be almost exclusively protein and not a lot of fat because I tend to drink them right before I go to the gym, and too much fat is too much in my stomach. It slows down digestion. And so I use keto chow all the time in my baking. I don't use it as much in my drinking because I find it tastes much better when you add fat to it, which is how it's designed to be used. I'm not saying they're doing it wrong. I'm saying that's the way that shake tastes best. I tend to do mostly protein, not a lot of fat, which you totally could do with a keto chow shake. I'm not saying you can't. It's just personal preference about how things work in my body. Julie, wow. Baking and before workouts. Did that answer your question? So in terms of baking, what I use most often is probably keto chow. I love their flavors. I think they're great. There are other combo protein powders on the market that you can order. So if I were like, I could only ever buy one protein powder and it's not keto chow for whatever reason. Um, I would find a milk protein isolate or something that's a combination of whey and casein to bake with. Right now, I have a jar of just vanilla casein protein in my little. I have a little cubby hole where I store things. You know, like that shelf that you never use in the. That's where my protein powders are. Um, and I have a thing of casein protein in there. It makes great pancakes compared to other things. Or I'll use like a tablespoon of it to thicken a shake or just thicken something. But my primary baking would be a milk protein isolate. Remember the word isolate, not concentrate. Isolate, better. Don't get concentrates if you can avoid it. Um, that would be my recommendation. The only issue I ever have with baking with keto chow is just that because they put nutrients into the powders, you have to overcome the saltiness, which the salt is good for baking with a little more sweetener. So sometimes I'm like, I have to add a little more sweetener when I use keto chow versus when I use a different protein powder that doesn't have the high salt. It's just a balance thing. Tracy said, since vegans can't get a complete protein from the diet, which amino acids are they missing? Great question. So here is the deal. You can combine protein powders. So I'm not a vegan protein powder expert. Soy protein is a complete protein, but I know a lot of us avoid soy. But it's like brown rice has these amino acids, and hemp has these amino acids, and so it's like so if you combine pea protein has these. So if you combine different vegetable protein powders, you can get a complete profile. If that made sense, right? So each one has kind of these different profiles. Remember how I talked about like layering blank weave open weave blankets on top of each other, like knitted blankets. So if you layer them properly, you can get a complete protein. So that's what vegans do, hopefully. Right? It's that same thing we've heard. I mean, I was a vegetarian for a few years when I was a teenager. It's like that's why you want to do beans and rice together because they form a complete protein. So the protein in the rice plus protein in the beans forms a complete protein. Each one in and of themselves, not a complete protein. So whenever using vegan protein powders, you do tend to have to combine them. Um, Julia, new viewer, hello. Glad you're here. Happy to answer any questions you got. Tally says, not sure if you covered this topic, but is fat a lever or does it need to be met in order to be on keto? My experience, if I don't meet the fat and stay in the proteins, I don't lose weight. Interesting, Tally. So it depends, is my answer. So when you say fat has to be met, the question on that is who says how much fat you need to meet, right? It's probably from a calculator somewhere. And who knows if that's right for any of our bodies. Generally speaking, we can look at um, macronutrients, protein, fat, and carbohydrates as they have different functions. So proteins are structural. We need enough protein to rebuild our body, right? Our hair, our skin, and nails, our muscles, all of that needs constant replenishment of protein. But we need somewhere between here and here. There's a range we need. If we're in this range, we're going to be pretty good. We don't necessarily need more, though more is probably not going to hurt us. But we definitely don't want less because less is definitely going to hurt us, right? But we want to be in range. But our primary sources of energy, so structure, protein, energy, fat, and carbs, those are what our body preferentially likes for energy, right? And like, 'cause we're not a plant, we can't do photosynthesis, we need energy from our food. Um, on keto, we don't eat a lot of carbs, so we're not really getting very much energy from carbohydrates. So we need to get our energy from fat. So when we look at the model of sort of what all that works out to be, the fat as a lever thing is kind of true in that um, if you might need less or more, and you're going to adjust the fat up and down. Carbs are kept to such a small amount, they're not a good energy source. Protein is just kept to what you need for structure for the most part, and some gluconeogenesis. And then fat can go up and down, and you can be a very happy individual. Um, so, fat turns the dial on how much energy your body is getting. There's an interesting thing that can happen, which is when people undereat energy, we assume the outcome is going to be that they will lose body fat, right? Because if you need, I'm just going to throw numbers out there, I'm not talking to any person. If you need 2,000 calories to maintain your weight and you eat 1,500, well, your body's got to get that extra energy from somewhere. So it would make sense that it's pulling it out of your fat stores. And then you're losing body fat because you're using it up as energy for your daily energy needs, right? That makes sense from a logical perspective. But the one thing that we don't take into account is that while calories in we can track, we're not always great at tracking calories out. How much energy is our body actually using? And our bodies are adaptive. So for some people, when they start to eat less fat, they their bodies are like, why are you eating less? We are going to adapt to this situation and make sure you don't lose any weight because clearly you must be in a famine and we don't want that to happen. So we're going to turn your metabolic rate down. So sometimes when people are chronically under eating, they end up experiencing stalled weight loss, which I'm not saying eat more to lose more. However, um, there is a place where you start eating more. So if you eat more fat, you start eating more. You experience a upswing in your metabolic rate. You move more. Your unconscious movement is higher. You have a higher body temperature. Your thyroid can work better. So sometimes when we eat less, though in general, eating less will cause fat loss, it's not a given in all situations. So hopefully that explains some of that, Tally. I've got clients who I put on a reverse diet, which is meant to make them start to gain a little weight and they just lose more weight. And it's confusing from a dynamic perspective, but it makes sense when you go a layer deeper. So Jay in Tennessee, hello. Joy, wow, I cannot read. I'm sorry. Is it okay to drink electrolytes to avoid snacking? I feel like it makes the craving go away. Yep. Yeah, it's fine. I think. Obviously, make sure that you're in an appropriate range on what you're consuming in terms of the sodium content. But just gonna get my drink here. But I've yet to do it overdo sodium. Perfectly honest, it could be done though. So, I mean, if you're drinking like 8 of them, that would be an issue maybe. Um, Good evening, Debbie. Collagen stopped my hair from falling out. I always add it on top of the regular protein. It sets my stomach if I just mix it in liquid and don't eat at the same time. All right. Bronwyn says, "How do you make your pancakes?" Okay. Debbie, great, super. I like that you added on top. How do I make my pancakes? So I got the original recipe from Rachel Gregory, but I adapted it. So I'll give you my version. She gave me permission. I asked her. It is I'm doing this from memory. So 70 grams of pumpkin puree, 15 grams of casein, vanilla casein, couple drops of stevia glycerite, um, 2 tablespoons of ground pork rinds. I use pork panko brand. Uh, what else is in there? I think that might be everything. Oh, and then 2 egg whites and 2 whole eggs and 1 additional egg white. You need that or it won't work. And then I beat that all together. Oh, and half a teaspoon of baking powder. I beat that all together, add a little cinnamon, whatever spices you want. Beat that all together, let it sit for 5 minutes. The casein needs time to absorb liquid. So it might seem a little chunky at first. Beat it together, let it sit, then beat it again. It'll get smooth. And then I just make pancakes with that. And they're protein pancakes. They're a solid protein meal. And they're low carb, obviously. And I serve them with Greek yogurt on top. I like the way they taste that way. They're not like bready pancakes, but they're like thick crepes almost. I think they're delicious. I don't like traditional pancakes very much, but I like those a lot. So that's how I make those pancakes. You can also just make pancakes literally by mixing together keto chow and some eggs, and that'll make pancakes or waffles too. Kathy says, speaking of fasting, what would be the optimal time to fast before blood work? Always between 12 and 14 hours. I don't want people going more than 14 or less than 12. It's always optimal. Hey, Miriam, we were just talking about keto chow and how great that is. Terry says, other than experimenting, is there a way to know if we do better with lower fat or is that trial and error? It's trial and error. You have to try it. Give it 30 days, see what you think. It's kind of painful at first to lower your fat, but now I feel so much better. I love to reintroduce a lot of fat, but I I feel worse without the protein than I do without the fat these days. Um Tally says, exactly. If I go into starvation mode, if I don't get my fat fuel, I stay under 13 grams of carbs. Yeah, I would say instead of calling, I would say call it metabolic adaptation instead of starvation mode because it's your body adapting. It's adaptation. I just noticed I have my first callus from working out. Hey. What are some signs of too much sodium, Mary? It tends to feel uncomfortable. Your skin starts to feel stretched. You feel swollen. Those are some signs. Um, Julia, is there something specific I should be aware of to help me lose weight? I don't have a thyroid and only 3 parathyroid glands. Trying to control type 2 diabetes. Well, uh, I would um, I would definitely say that you're probably on thyroid replacement, right? If you don't have a thyroid, then you're going to need thyroid replacement or you'll die. So I assume you're already on that. So getting your thyroid dialed in terms of the level is very important, I think. And then controlling type 2 diabetes, controlling your blood sugar, very important. And then in terms of, is there something specific I should be aware of to lose weight? I think the thing here is that everybody going keto, if you're new to keto, Julia, is you want to eat an appropriate amount of protein. So enough protein, because that is a non-negotiable. Um, that is generally between zero point 0.8 and 1 gram per pound of reference body weight. So shorthand, you could say goal body weight. It's a little, usually people's goal body weight is a little higher than the reference body weight. It's not going to be a big deal. And then from there, you want to keep your carbs very low because you want to keep your blood sugar in range, especially for you. Then you want to eat enough. So if you're new to keto, eat a lot of fat. Eat, cook with butter, use whole eggs, eat fattier cuts of meat. feel really nourished and satisfied by your food. And then over time, you will find the appropriate range for you to help with fat loss. But I never encourage people to eat less fat when they start keto. It's just a terrible way to start keto. So get your body used to being nourished, get yourself over the carb cravings, get yourself fully immersed in keto. And then from there, you'll find your path. Some people do better on a higher fat keto, some people do better on lower fat keto. So you're going to have to find your way. But beginners, I always say start with the high fat keto. Nancy, I did a video for the pancakes. I will post it. I just have to put it together. Tally, no worries. Is it bad to use a lot of monk fruit or stevia in my tea? I drink a lot of hot tea will affect ketosis. Yeah, no, I don't think there's a big deal with the monk fruit or stevia in your tea. I think you do have to look at making sure you're training your body to not crave sweet all the time, though. So it can be helpful to just kind of dial down the sweetness of your drinks a bit, so that a little bit can go a long way and not sort of habituate yourself to using a lot of it. But I really don't think that monk fruit or stevia in your tea is the cause of your problems for most people, unless they're actually allergic to stevia, which can happen. But anyway. Okay, good, Julia. Hey, Terry, I'm typically 140 grams of protein, 70 to 80 grams of fat. I currently do 80-20 for lunch. I'm assuming you mean ground beef. Yeah. 93 for supper. That sounds great. Sounds yummy, yummy. Debbie, are meat sweats something I should be concerned with? Since going ketovore, I experience internal heat increases after eating sometimes. It's a little freaky and not sure if it's okay. It's totally fine. It's not a problem. I tend to think it's due to the higher thermic effect of protein. So if you're eating more protein, I never experienced it until I got my protein really high, and it's just that your body has to work harder to metabolize protein, and I think of it as a good thing. I have hypothyroid. I used to always be cold. So I it's not something to be concerned about. Zelia. Hopefully I said that right. Zelia. If I know if I go under 100 grams of fat or protein, I lose hair or feel bad almost 5 years in. But I have to keep carbs below 10 or I stall. My body doesn't like me lowering fat or protein. Yeah, you got to listen to your body. Why is allulose okay if it is a rare sugar, or is it? So allulose is indeed a rare sugar. Allulose, what does a rare sugar mean? Well, it comes from sugar, but it's not, it's sort of like, I would say this. They've essentially stripped away any of the things that cause a glucose response from allulose. So it comes from sugar, it's made from sugar, but it's not sugar. That's the way I look at it. And so I was concerned about allulose when I first heard about it because I was new, and new things scare me. Just gonna say it. But I don't have an issue with it. I'll use allulose now. I don't always love it for everything because it is less sweet than some of the other sweeteners, but I certainly would use it. I don't have a concern about it myself. Again, as I said earlier, though, it is good to train ourselves to not like things as sweet, not to heavily rely on sweet things, to enjoy the taste of savory foods. All of that is important. Julia, I just started lifting weights this week. Congratulations. Welcome to the new club. How many days a week should I lift? Um, that is a good question. When we're new, I think that any lifting is better than none. Actually, just this morning on a podcast, I'm like podcast regurgitator. That's what I do. I listen to podcasts and I explain things that I listen to on the podcast. But it was an exercise and protein researcher, Stu Phillips at McMaster's, who's very smart. And what he was saying, which I've heard before, right? If you're not lifting weights at all, one time is better than 0 times a week. 2 times is much better than 1 time. 3 times is slightly better than 2 times. 4 times is only a little bit better than 3 times. 5 times is not that much better, but just marginally better. And more than 5 times, you kind of move in the opposite direction. Now, that's very general advice. But what I think, and again, I am not an expert in the weightlifting field in any way, shape, or form. But what I'm going with, and what I have heard, and what I've talked to is um, that or sorry, I got distracted. That I go 3 times. Why do I go 3 times? Um, it gives my muscles time to get a little repair before I hit the same muscle group. So I do full body workouts 3 times a week. Now that would look different if I were doing splits, right? If I were doing legs on one day, upper body on another day, blah, 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 right? So it kind of depends what you're training when. To me, it made sense as a newbie to do full body trainings. Why is that? Well, because when you're new, you get newbie gains, you recover faster. You're really working on the strategy, the technique, less on the muscle itself. It's not so because of newbie gains, I was like, I think it makes sense to train more often. Women also tend to recover faster from leg day than men do for some reason. Um, so that's what I decided on, 3 days a week. The other part I decided on 3 days a week was if I ever miss 1, I still have 2. And so for me, 2 is the, like, minimum, and then 3 is, for me, optimum. It gives me time to recover. I go on walks. The other day, I'm not sedentary, but 3 was what I decided on. So I think that one of the problems is that if you make, like, there was a point I was like, "Oh, maybe I should do 4 instead of 3." And I was like, "You know what? If I do 4," like, I started to like what I was doing, and I was looking forward to going to the gym, and I was like, "I'll do 4." And I was like, "If I say I'm gonna do 4, but I then end up doing 3, I'm gonna feel like a failure. I'm gonna feel like a loser." Just to be honest about my personality. And then that will make me more likely to miss more often. But 3, I can really commit to. And if I can really commit to 3, then I can do that. I made myself a commitment that I can do. And when I said, if I only go 2, it's like last Friday, I decided that it was a good idea for me to go for a walk instead, just from my mental health perspective. And that was okay because I was like, well, I'm going 2. But it wasn't an excuse. In the last 8 weeks, I haven't that was the first time I skipped, right? So, that's how I made my decision. Again, I can tell you from what I've heard, that my opinion was 3 times felt best for me. Um, you don't wanna hit the same body part when it's still very sore. I do know that. So, a lot of how often you're going kinda depends on how you tend to recover as well. So, there you go. Um, Terry reminds you all to like and subscribe. Thank you, Terry. I need a cheerleader. Like and subscribe, people. Like and subscribe. It's getting dark in here. Should turn the lights on. Um, Julia says, I used to love working out, but had a stress related heart attack. Oh, I'm sorry. Can't seem to get my strength or stamina back. I feel like I'm going backwards, especially since I'm not even working. Can you, okay, always check with your cardiologist, but I would think that a cardiologist would support you getting active again because it's good for your heart. Are you walking? So I think if you're currently sedentary, this is for everybody. If someone is currently sedentary, just starting a walking practice is a huge win. Huge. We often think we have to go from completely sedentary to a gym bunny. No, just incrementally, right? So if you're sedentary, start walking. 15-minute walks once a day, then maybe 2 a day. Then just keep adding layers on top. You don't have to go from 0 to 60. So, Julia, check with your cardiologist, but I would imagine that walking is probably a pretty good idea. So, if you're not already walking, start walking. That's everybody. Zelia, lost 100 pounds sitting on my butt. Yep, it can happen. But now I lost flexibility. This is inspiring. Just don't know where to start. See, this is what happens, you guys. I start keto and then I'm like, let me talk about keto all the time. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I'm talking about keto. Now I know what I'm talking about with food. Now you want me to talk about exercise. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing with exercise. Apparently you want to learn with me, right? Oh, yeah. Julie says I'm pretty sedentary. I used to work 50 hours a week. Now if I get out of breath if I walk around the block. You know what, Julie? We all got to start somewhere. Um, and doing things beget doing things. So talk to your doctor about what's appropriate for you. But you don't have to do. So here was my philosophy when I started in the gym again. I have spent a lot of my life going to the gym and starting a workout routine and then giving up on it after one session because I was so miserable in that session. Often I'd be like, I don't know what I'm doing. I should really hire a trainer. I would meet with a trainer. The trainer would put me through some workout routine that was totally inappropriate for someone in the shape that I was in. I think they were like, let me show this lady how useful I can be. I can really work them. And I instead felt like I was going to die. In fact, twice I passed, not the same, two different times. I was like, I don't feel well. I need a minute. Went into the bathroom and passed out on the bathroom floor. Not a good experience. So, um, this time I was like, this time it's going to be different. So I didn't hire a trainer. I thought about it. I was gonna. And then I was like, no, I'm going to do my own homework. I'm going to learn about this. I'm going to make I'm going to make every gym session feel like a win to me. I'm going to work on feeling like I know what I'm doing. I'm going to invest in this energetically, but my focus is going to be that I have to feel good about it. Did I feel good after every session? No. But like I have to feel like I'm winning instead of losing. And I have to feel like I have to work. I was going to say I had to. I still have to work on positive self-talk as I go. I have to not look at somebody else and think, why does she look like that and why don't I look like that? I have to think about why can they lift that and why can't I lift that? But I have to think about I meant to say I don't want to think that, right? I have to think this is the body I'm in. This is what I can do right now. I'm going to just do one step at a time. I'm going to just constantly look for improvement in myself. So I could lift this, now I can lift that. I could do this exercise, now I can do that exercise, right? I'm moving forward. So we all have setbacks, but we can always do a little more than we did yesterday or last week. And so if you get winded walking around the block, then maybe you walk one block. Then the next week you walk two, then you walk three. It's just about improvement. It's not about perfection. Okay. That's what I have to talk to myself about. Julia, I'm glad you're here too. Melissa says, I was so active and walked 25 miles a week. Now I sit all day. Foot surgery. So sorry about that. Foot surgery. That's probably frustrating. One good thing to know is any activity in your body is felt by your whole body. So if you can't walk because you hurt your foot, but sitting, can you move your legs? Can you kick your legs like you're in swimming class? Can you move your arms? Right? So we have a whole body. Just because we can't walk right now doesn't mean we can't move something. So move something. Move your shoulders, dance in your seat. Uh, you know, get up and down from a chair. Even if you can't put weight on that foot, put the weight on the other foot. Um, or if your chair has arms, push yourself up and down. Move what you can move until you can move other things. We make this in and this is me. I don't mean to be like you guys out there, you do better. I'm like, I had to do better. Um, like don't be a perfectionist here. My advice, right? I used to cry at the gym because I was like, I get it, this is very traumatic, right? I have trauma around exercise. And I mean, my I'm a seasoned veteran of like 3 months now in the gym. But I was like, "Oh, I need to heal this. I need to fix this. I need to find a way to do this. I need to start to trust myself here. This is my body. Like I'm going to die one day. I should probably use it before then." Um, you know, so so yeah, uh, 2022 is my year of exercise, I decided. So I'm going to be working on that a lot this year. So anyway. All right, guys, we're rounding out the hour. So it's been really glad to have you here with me tonight. I apologize again for being late. I will be back next week on time. Tell your friends, let people know that they should join us. I'll try and do better lighting next time. It's very dim in here. So don't give up on yourself, just better every day and do what you can. Focus on what you can do, not what you can't do. Should be hard, but not impossible. All right, guys. Take care. Have a good night. Bye.